Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Shire of Manjimup Ordinary Meeting of Council, Tuesday the 26th of August 2025, commencing at 5:30. Kaya, Nala, Karak, Nuak, Mort, Kan, Karak, Ninja, Buja. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we meet. Announcements by the President. I am and have been part of many community committees, from school to sport to business and to the environment. In all of these committees, there are two things that I've noticed. There are people that, if you ask a busy person to get something done, they're the ones that will take it on, and they will take on numerous things even though they are stretched. There's also, the other part is, to be part of the discussion and decision making, you have to be around the table to be part of the solution. Sitting behind a keyboard complaining doesn't make for change. The second part is why I stood for council. This October, there are 6 councillor positions up for election. Now is your time. As always, I would like to acknowledge those who go out of their way to care for our most vulnerable within our community. We have an amazing team down at HAC who always go above and beyond expectations, and of course our emergency service crew. I'd really like to take the opportunity to thank our amazing palliative care nurses. The support that they give families and patients at a difficult time cannot be underestimated. I've seen them at the back of funerals shedding a silent tear, and words cannot thank them enough. I'd also, on a lighter note, just remind people to keep an eye out for some amazing events coming up. We have the inaugural Pemberton Avocado Festival. Tickets are on sale now. We also have Fun for Charity, which tickets go on sale on the 1st of September. And I would encourage everyone to get behind our local community events. It's these events that put so much back into our communities. Apologies, we have...
Thank you, Madam President. We have no apologies for the meeting. You may notice, although it's just disappeared, Councillor Mylan, who is not on the around the council table, is dialing in and has been pre-authorised to do so by the Shire President. And I understand Councillor Omaday, previous apology for this meeting obviously is not required because he is in the flesh.
Here he is. Here he is. Councillors, I do ask that, seeing Councillor Mylan is on online, please be mindful of using your microphones, as he won't be able to hear you without your mics. Declarations of interest?
Thank you, Madam President. I have 2 declarations, both from Councillor De Campo, both in relation to the one agenda item, which is agenda item 9.3.1, which is a request to change the basis of rating for a portion of Lot 101 De Campo Road. The financial interest is that Councillor De Campo contracts and shares equipment with his brother who owns the property, and the nature of the proximity interest, Councillor De Campo has an interest in the neighbouring property. So for that agenda item, Councillor De Campo will need to leave the chamber while debate and discussion and voting occurs.
Thank you. Section 5 is public question time. 5.1, response to public questions taken on notice. There are nil. 5.2, public question time. Under meeting procedure, which are the standing orders, this is the only opportunity for members of the public to address or ask questions of council. Each person will be given 3 minutes. There is no further opportunity to interject or question the council or staff during the meeting. Questions can be asked on any Shire matter, not just on issues included in the meeting agenda. Persons asking questions are entitled to a response. If a matter requires further investigation, that response may be in writing. I do ask that each person states their name and address, as this will form part of the meeting minutes. Questions? Thank you. Would you like to come to the lectern and state your name and address and ask your questions?
It's not so much a Sorokin as mine, Tony Sorokin at 325 Churches Road, Jardine. It's not so much a question that I have for the council. It's actually more of a statement than anything else. And what I'm referring to is the subject or the question that I raised back in March of this year about an individual in Decker Road that destroyed or killed a tree. And I acted because I felt it was my duty to do so, because it wasn't going to be the only tree that was going to go down. It was going to be, he had in line to kill the rest. He may have denuded his property of all trees, but it doesn't give him the right to move onto public land and public property and destroy it. This council, not only this council, but councils throughout the whole of this state and Australia, works and functions on money received from the taxpayer, state government and various organisations. And that's, I don't have a problem with that, but the problem is that all this, the trees and the money that you do get goes to for gardening, trees, buildings, roads, footpaths, etc. I don't need to explain that to you. So it doesn't give anyone the right to take things in their own hands and do what they want with them. He may have denuded his own property of all trees, but that's, his thinking is back in the ark, and that is well and truly over and done with. However, the tree came down. I did make a statement that I felt that the tree should be removed and the cost thereof given to the gentleman who destroyed the tree in the first place. I believe he was fined $1,500. I don't know what the cost of removing and cleaning up the mess, removing the tree and cleaning up the mess. I have no idea. However, I'd be interested to know. But the other issue was that my name, after making raising the issue with this council, my name was then given to this gentleman and we had a confrontation. Now, I don't particularly care what he said about me or what, because I owe him nothing and I owe no one anything in this town or any other town for that matter. But the point is, he said, I have the proof and the evidence that you have raised this issue with the council. Well, that's fair enough. Furthermore, the tree came down, it was cleaned up. I found out that on the very day that the council actually paid for the clean-up and the removal of all the debris. The gentleman also raised the question with the council about receiving the tree trunk, and then smarted about the council paying for the clean-up, but smarted about taking the tree trunk and now slabbing it, and I can make $5,000 out of it. That, incidentally, just left me with dumbfounded that this man, after destroying the tree, is rewarded by giving him the tree trunk where he can actually profit by it. I mean, it's just an unbelievable situation that this would even happen. So I'll just leave it with you to deal with as you feel fit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sorokin. Did you want to? Yeah, so I think you have some details of a director. Is that where we're? And we will follow that up and try and get some information to you about policy and procedure where we are going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Hello. Apologies, I feel a bit nervous here. My name's Steve Simeone. I'd like to address the council tonight on agenda item 9.5.6, support for redevelopment application at Carey Street, Walpole. Just quickly, both myself and my wife purchased 26 Carey Street, Walpole earlier this year. We live in Greenmount in the Shire of Mundaring. The house was built in 1997 and until recently was owned by the same two families, neither of which lived in Walpole but in Perth and Wagen. 26 Carey Street has never been owned or occupied, but used as a holiday accommodation for both families and friends for all those years. My wife Tony and I wish to do things properly and comply with the Shire's requirements in applying for short stay accommodation, which is why I'm here today. I have received a letter that was actually written from Burton Realties to support the application. I don't know if it was actually added in. I didn't see that it was. Excellent, excellent. Am I wasting my time reading excerpts from it?
That's entirely up to you. You have 1 minute and 45 seconds to do
Perfect.
so if you wish.
Okay. On behalf of Burton Realty, I'd like to express our support for the application of the change of use of Carey Street Walpole from long-term residence tenancy to professionally managed short-term accommodation. As the appointment managing agent, Burton Realty will oversee the property's day-to-day operations. This means we'll ensure and complies with Shire's planning. A managed SDA is far safer and more accountable option for the community than an unmanaged one. It provides professional oversight, rapid response to any issues, and commitments to high standards, which in turn creates benefits for Walpole and the wider Manjimup Shire. As you can see, it actually goes on to state a few other things. Management commitments from Walpole, from Burton Realty. They'll act as our 24/7 contact. I know one of the agents only lives a few doors up, which is handy. The property will be managed within the Shire's requirements, including on-site parking, which was one of the things that someone brought up, as well as complying with safety standards, waste recycling, professional cleaning, and the use of local trades for maintenance. Final note was to wish to highlight that Walpole currently has 2 long-term rentals available and 4 more have been let in the past 3 months. So for this reason, they don't believe any narrative around that a short-term accommodation is taken away from long-term rentals is accurate in the market at the moment. The only thing I'd like to say is on page 77 of the agenda, it summarises from that there were 3 responders, only 2 people raising concerns about the change of use. I'm just hoping that what we've raised today, in us keeping with council guidelines, will alleviate any concern to these responders. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Hello, sir.
Hello. My name is Ross Craig. I'm from Maxwell Street in Manjimup. I just have 2 things. Number 1 is just a statement and the second one is a question. My statement is to thank the Shire on behalf of the people in this town that are having difficulties finding somewhere to live. Your changes to that act, allowing people to have caravans, etc. on their properties, will actually, I don't know if you've had any feedback about the numbers or whatever at this point in time, but it is going to have a positive feedback. So on behalf of those who are challenged to somewhere to live at the moment, thank you so much. My second question, and I will allow you time after the public meeting is over to discuss and get back to me, is on behalf of the Carols in the Park, Christmas in the Park committee, I am officially inviting the Shire to put together a Christmas carol to sing publicly at that event. Thank you so much.
Councillor Mylan, this is right up your alley. We will discuss that tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. Craig. We will have new councillors by that point, so we'll just tell them that it's compulsory. Simple as that. That we do this every year and we're doing it again this year. Thank you. Councillor Mylan, did you have something to add?
No, I won't debate it, but I do think it's a good idea.
Me too. Excellent. Are there any other questions? Fabulous. Okay. Section 6, presentations. 6.1, petitions. There are nil. 6.2, presentations. There are nil. 6.3, deputations. We have 1. Jen, stay there and do it. Yep, go for it, Jen.
I'd like to read a statement from Manjimup Foundation Australia in Walpole in regard to item 9.5.3. They're not able to come tonight. Manjimup Foundation Australia wishes to express its deep gratitude to the Shire of Manjimup, to the Council and especially the officers who have worked tirelessly on this application, guiding the Foundation through every step of the process with great professionalism and care. The Foundation also acknowledges with thanks the dedicated support of planning consultant Sam Williams, whose guidance has been invaluable. The rezoning represents more than a change of land use. It is a step towards creating a place of well-being, unity and service, a space that will bring lasting benefit to the South Coast community now and into the future. The Foundation is sincerely thankful for the opportunity to contribute in this way.
Thank you, Councillor. 6.4 delegate reports, there are nil, and 6.5 conference reports, there are nil. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Councillor Ivey.
I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Council held on the 22nd of July 2025 and the minutes of the special meeting of the Council held on 30th of July 2025 be confirmed as a true and accurate record.
Is there a seconder? Councillor DeCampo. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Thank you, Councillor Mylan. I'll give you an extra couple of seconds. Carried 9-0. Section 8, motions of which previous notice has been given. This, as listed, this will be dealt with in section 12 of this meeting. Section 9 is officers' reports. So just to explain, for the interest of the gallery, we are about to consider the agenda. We've all had it for about a week to thoroughly review each item. This meeting is the only time that councillors are able to formally debate agenda items. I'll read out each item listed in the agenda. Councillor will be able to identify any agenda item they wish to debate. These items plus the absolutes will be listed on the whiteboard behind me. All items not identified by councillors to be debated will be moved in accordance with the officer's recommendation in one motion and listed in the agenda as moved on block. If your item is not listed on the board, it's moved on block. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to. Okay, Office of the CEO. 9.1.1, draft policy on committees, advisory groups and reference group is absolute and taken out. 9.1.2, Australia-China Local Government Exchange Program 2025. 9.1.3, review of council policy 1.1.2, councillor meeting fees and reimbursement of expenses is absolute and taken out. Corporate and governance, 9.2.1, request for lease approval to complete development on site 526 Windy Harbour. Finance and administration, 9.3.1, request to change basis of rating for portion of lot 101 in brackets 17 DeCampo Road, Eastbrook, from gross rental value to unimproved value has an interest and taken out. 9.3.2, Shire financial payments for June 2025. 9.3.3, monthly statement of financial activity June 2025. 9.3.4, proposed actions, income and expenditure sustainability plan. 9.3.5, proposed review of council policy 4.1.8, temporary overdraft, and council policy 4.1.1, investment policy. It's taken out. Statutory planning. 9.5.1, retrospective application for animal establishment dog breeding at lot 1 in brackets 45 Tink Road, Quinnanup has an alternative. Oh, Councillor DeCampo. Thank you, is taken out. 9.5.2, proposed change of use of existing building to a tavern at lot 102 in brackets 721 7 Day Road, Jardee. Thank you. 9.5.3, consideration of submissions and final approval of Amendment 32 of Lot 46845 Southwestern Highway, Walpole. 954, consideration of submissions and final approval of Amendment 33 to Local Planning Scheme Number 4, short-term rental accommodation. 955, proposed revocation of Local Planning Policy 6.1.7, alfresco dining. 956, proposed change of use from a dwelling to a holiday accommodation at lot 16 in brackets 26 Carey Street, Walpole. 9.5.7, delegated planning decisions, July 2025. 958, consideration of submissions and proposed re-adoption of planning policy 6.1.2, advertising of planning proposals. Ranger and Emergency Services. 9.7.1, 2025 to 26 fire break fuel hazard reduction notice. 9.7.2, proposed review is absolute and taken out. I'm not reading all that. 9.7.3, review of proposed adoption of Shire of Manjimup bushfire risk management plan. Community and Recreation Services. 991, consideration of fee waiver request from Breast Screen WA is taken out. 9.9.2, divestment Shire of Manjimup aged and community care services and assets. Proposal to seek expressions of interest is taken out. Technical Services. 9.12.1, proposed road closure and amalgamation of unnamed unconstructed road reserve in the vicinity of Lot 102 Southwestern Highway, Wilgarup. Works.
Sorry,
Yes.
can I take 992 out, please? Oh, it's out.
Yep, out. Jade took it. Councillor Darren took it out. 9.13.1, proposed one-off delegation to Chief Executive Officer to award requests for tender 01-26 supply of gravel and 02-26 cartage of gravel is absolute and taken out. Parks and Gardens. 9.14.1, replacement of Manjimup bin surrounds is absolute and taken out. Advisory committees. 9.16.1, unconfirmed minutes of the Reconciliation Action Plan Advisory Committee meeting held on the 16th of June 2025 is good. 9.16.2, unconfirmed minutes of the Manjimup Heritage Park Advisory Committee meeting held on the 8th of July 2025 is absolute, taken out. 9.16.2, unconfirmed minutes of the Bushfire Advisory Committee meeting held on the 16th of July 25. And finally, 9.16.4, unconfirmed minutes of the Airfield Management Committee meeting held on the 11th of June 2025. Made it. Councillor Ivey.
I move that council adopt the recommendations contained in the council officers and committee reports on pages 1 to 135 of the agenda, with the exception of those on the board.
Is there a seconder? Councillor De Campo. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Okay, page 8. Draft policy on committees, advisory groups and reference groups. Is there a mover? Councillor De Campo.
I'll move as per officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Ventris. Councillor De Campo, did you want to speak to the motion?
Other than this is a great outcome for a reduction of frivolous committees that are generally poorly attended, and then we have presentation of minutes that are from committees that don't have quorums and are based, the decisions are based on those. So I think this is a great outcome for a far more streamlined and efficient committee system.
Thank you. Councillor Ventris.
Yeah, I think like a lot of things, change is sometimes difficult. If we make a change and it doesn't work out, we've always got the opportunity to go back to it. So I think it's worthwhile to give it a go in a sense, and we'll have a new council soon, and you see, and I'm sure there'll be some monitoring of this situation going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against? Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Page 16. 9.1.2, review of council policy 1.1.2, councillor meeting fees and reimbursement of expenses. Is there a mover? Councillor De Campo.
As per officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Ivey. Councillor De Campo, did you want to speak to the motion?
Well, why not put the foot in the water? Look, given we've got an election coming up and there are a number of councillors, in fact 6 of us that are up for election, we may have 6 new councillors around this chamber, and I think a marginal increase to sitting fees shows the value of people's efforts that they put in local government today. What is interesting is just yesterday the town of Port Hedland has been suspended and then potentially the city of Coolgardie, Shire of Coolgardie, may potentially go into suspension as well. It is becoming increasingly difficult in local government with the responsibilities you have as a councillor, and with training and time spent. I think fair remuneration of people's efforts in being a councillor should be rewarded, and I think this is a great step towards doing that in Manjimup. It is a small step for acknowledgement of the time spent in lieu outside of working hours, and potentially, and of course I mean no disrespect to anyone in relation to that, although we have a few around here, you potentially end up with a significant amount of retirees around the room, and that excludes a great amount of people in our community that if they had a slight amount of remuneration or a little bit better than what we had, they would consider it, because people have to take a day out of their week, most weeks, in relation to their local government, fulfilling their local government duties. So I think this is a great item in respect to that, and should incentivise more people into the future to consider running for local government because of that impediment of having to reduce the ability to earn outside of the chamber. I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor De Campo. Councillor Ivey? Are there any speakers against? Councillor Amadou.
Madam Speaker, I would like to speak against the motion. And firstly, for the benefit of those that are listening or read the minutes, that I didn't attend the last council meeting, nor the two briefing sessions where this matter was discussed, I understand it, at length. And within the comments from the Manager of Governance and Corporate Services, there's enough information for us to make a considered decision. If I had been at one of those briefings, my concern is in one way that we are now looking at a policy after we've already budgeted the money in the budget for the payment, and councillors have already received payments before we've renewed the policy. My thought is that the policy should have been done first, well and truly before the budget meeting, and then obviously that policy would dictate what would be involved. And I understand the sentiment of those people who discussed this matter prior to it coming to council. The idea of attracting more people, the days of volunteerism are diminishing, and people now are spending some of their own time. I would have thought, if I had been at one of those meetings, I would have said, well, I understand state government is going to mandate that we have to ban 2 council, of which we are one, would have to have a 12% increase in superannuation. I would have thought that 12% increase on your payments would have been adequate, would have been enough. But when I look at the spreadsheet and I see that councillors are now going to be paid in the 60th percentile of the middle of the band, so before we were being paid under the 50%, which I thought was appropriate. And a councillor back then was getting $21,000 a year, and under the 60th percentile would receive $22,000 with a maximum of $26,000 per year, which I think is about right as far as the council is concerned. However, when it comes to the Deputy President, the increases are significant. The Deputy President isn't always called on, and this is with due respect to Councillor Mylan, who I think does an excellent job. In regard to the Shire President's salary is going to go from $69,000 currently to $105,000, and I think that is a big jump, too big a jump. If you add the 12%, the $105,000 comes to $118,000. So only 2 years ago we were paying the President $60,000, now we're going to paying the president roughly 120,000, which I think is too big a jump. And again, I think that the council had said, okay, let's stay in the 50th percentile, 50% of the band, plus the 12% would have been an adequate amount of remuneration for the Shire President and for the Deputy President as well. And I know there is a clause in here, a provision to allow recipients to pay, to not receive the total that's designated, and I think that's a good idea too. So I do believe that council should be paid adequate remuneration, and I think with the 12% on top of the increase that's being proposed here is is too much. I think what we need to do now, and obviously councillors have indicated that they support this kind of increase, that we need to get that message out fairly quickly. If it's the intention to give the incentive to people to join council, then we need to get that message out before Friday, before nominations close. Now, how you do that, whether you do it through Antenno, it's obviously too late for the local paper, but put out a press statement. I think we need to be absolutely transparent as to what we're doing. We're dealing with ratepayers' funds, and it's never easy to increase the payment to councillors, especially when people are doing it pretty tough out there at the moment. So I'll be voting against the recommendation.
Can I clarify a couple of things? Okay, can I just clarify a couple of comments made by Councillor Omade there? Mr CEO, the Shire President's allowance was stated that was 105. Can you just clarify if that's correct?
Thank you, Madam President. No, that's not correct. That's the maximum permissible under the salaries and allowances band. So presently, and I'm referring on page 18 for those who are either watching along at home or in the gallery, on page 18 of the agenda papers, presently the Shire President payments are made up of an annual attendance fee and an annual local government allowance. Presently, that's 69,860, and that sits at the 50th percentile. At the 60th percentile, that would shift to $77,055, and that excludes the 12% super guarantee that will be mandatory for Band 2s as of effectively the 19th of October this year. So I believe Councillor Omade may have just been looking at the wrong column on that table, that's all.
Madam President, could I just clarify? So therefore, under that column that you've just quoted from, it will be 77,000 plus 12%, which will be about 90,000. Still very high.
The other clarification that I'd like is about policy and the payment. Can you just clarify the statements that Councillor Omade had made there, please?
Thank you, Madam President. If I pick up on your question, I think what you're referring to...
The sequencing of
sequencing, yeah.
The payments to policy. And
Councillor Omade is quite correct. There was a budget amendment, well, during the budget preparation, which increased the budget line item for councillors' allowances. It's not a salary, they are allowances. However, we have a policy which indicated that the payment that I was authorised to make was only to the 50th percentile. So councillors have still been, allowances have still been paid at the 50th percentile. If this agenda item is approved tonight, the increase to the 60th percentile and the superannuation would take effect from, this is on page 21, in the actual recommendation, would be effective from tomorrow, the 27th of August onwards.
thank you. So just to clarify, the previous payment that councillors have received is not at the 60th percentile rate.
That's correct.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Darren.
I ran for my first election 8 years ago and was elected. And at that point in time, I was the youngest councillor on this council. Today, 8 years later, I am still the youngest councillor on this council. I would love to see more people that have young kids at home like I do, that are even younger, that represent a community of people that are maybe struggling to get into housing. I would love to see people from all demographics and all regional centres. Some of our councillors will be travelling from as far as Walpole and Northcliffe, potentially Quinninup and Pemberton. While I acknowledge Councillor Omaday's comments, those of us that do make the commitment to turn up to those briefing sessions and to those council meetings deserve to be remunerated for the time that we take to do this. I have to be removed from my business to be able to come here. People have to be removed from their jobs. When I first joined council, I was a single mum. If I didn't get paid for coming here, I wouldn't have been able to run because I had to give up a day a week of my job. That was the only income I had to keep the roof over my house because I was the roof over my head and my daughter's head because I was the only income earner. I was able to run for council and sit here and be part of the conversation because I so desperately wanted my council to represent the people of my community, and my community was a 31-year-old single mum surrounded by people like me, and there was no voices like mine sitting at this table. Since I joined, we did have other Councillor Ivy is a single mum, but had a teenage daughter at the time. Councillor Dawson-Vidovich had young children as well, and we really did see a shift towards people running for council that saw that this was a potential opportunity for them to be a part of their community and step up and say something. And I think the council report really reflected a very important thing. This isn't about incentivising, it's about removing the barriers that disincentivise people to run for council, and once they are here, staying on council. There is something about continuity in your local leadership. If we continually have people that run for council, get 4 years in and realise that this is too much of an imposition on their life and they can't cost-benefit balance that, then we will lose those people, we lose that continuity, we lose that ability to ensure that the projects that we want to implement for our community and the leadership we want to have for our community, that is ongoing and that we are able to achieve some really big and great things over a period of time. We are all in different situations. I acknowledge that there is a 12% superannuation. I'm 30 years away from being able to access my superannuation, so it's certainly not going to help my cost of living, and I'm in a very lucky, privileged position now, and I recognise that. But for those that aren't self-funded retirees, for those that are still working people and don't have access to that the superannuation is fantastic for a future point in time, but it's not going to remove those barriers for people to run and to stay on council. This is not a huge increase. It is moving from the 50th to the 60th percentile. We are not sitting at the 100th percentile. We are not talking about paying ourselves at the absolute maximum. It is recognising for the time and the effort that is taken to come to council, to be a part of the committees, to be a part of the briefing sessions, to come to the meetings, to the training sessions, to all of the different parts that are involved with council and actively engaging in all of those things, that those people be remunerated for what they're doing to a reasonable level and ensuring that we support other people to be able to do that. So I understand that this is a potentially controversial topic to usually talk about, but I do encourage councillors to support the motion. And if anybody in particular doesn't feel that they need the remuneration to offset the costs or the income that they're giving up, but then there is a clause in here that says that you can turn the money down and give it back to the council. I trust that we can all exercise that if we feel that it's necessary.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other speakers?
Yeah, look, I'll be voting for it and I support it, but I think like all these things, I agree with everything that's just been said. It gives people the financial opportunity. I guess in reality also, but it will be a greater obligation on councillors to fulfil their commitments, to join council and turn up at the events and be at the briefings and be at the openings and that type of thing. So to some degree, we had an excuse in the past, potentially, because of what's been outlined. And we might be, with a higher pay, there might be higher accountability as well. So I'd just like to draw that to the attention of any potential new councillors and councillors that stay on, that, the excuse that we don't get remunerated may not be as strong, remembering that this is only a small increase. So, but I'll just, I understand. I have turned up when I first joined on council. I'll just give you an example where I turned up at the opening of a $39 million hospital, and I was only new to council, and I was a little surprised that there was only 2 other councillors at a $39 million opening. Now, councillors has already been outlined, have had to work and commitments elsewhere, and had jobs. But I was a little surprised when I joined council that such a large event as that there was potentially other councillors that couldn't afford. Remembering that I shared council with Councillor Darren at the time, couldn't afford to give up a day's work and be at an opening of a $39 million. Maybe going forward, those types of events and other events, there might be a greater expectation to be at briefings and that type of thing. But that's just my comments, observations. Doesn't make a lot of difference to me, Madam President.
Thank you, Councillor Ventris. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mylan? No, all good. Thank you. Councillor De Campo, did you like to close? Thank you.
Yes, I would. I don't think anyone around this table, and I'm sure in the other 139, 138
Yep.
local governments in Western Australia do this for the money. And in fact, a couple of budding politicians at the front table this week would probably attest to the fact that the vitriolic nature of being in the public eye with keyboard warriors is a disincentive in itself, without having to be disincentivised by remuneration. Now, nobody asked in local government to be paid 12% superannuation, and in fact, as Councillor Darren stated, I won't get mine for 30 years either, because I've probably got to work for that amount too, even though you're younger than me. The PCS scheme, by the way, right now, a scheme that you were under, Councillor Omaday, for when you signed the Local Government Act, is 15.4%. So state parliamentarians pay themselves 15.4% superannuation, but Councillor Omaday is critical of local government councillors receiving 12% superannuation. Would I prefer not to be paid superannuation as a local government councillor? Of course I would. In fact, somebody close to Councillor Omaday asked me in a supermarket one day whether they should run for council, and one of their determining factors was the fact that they had to get out of their job for that day or 2 days a week or month to come into council, and they couldn't afford to lose that. And then there were a number of other reasons that she was looking for as to whether she should or shouldn't run, and that could be whether there's a conflict of other things that they were doing in community interest, and we all have other interests within the community. But it is a real determining factor now, whether you run for council or not, as to whether you be paid. Now, I don't run for council. Well, some days I'm not sure why I run for council, but I don't run for council because of the remuneration, I can tell you. It just pops into the account every week, every month, I should say. And it is, in some ways, it's an acknowledgement that you participate within the community. There are lots of people that don't get paid to participate in the community, and I get that. But they don't have to deal with overlapping legislation. Just in the last fortnight, I've had to fight to stay on the council through an accusation, and with lawyers' advice. They don't have to deal with that in the main and in most cases. And they also don't have to deal with grant applications, looking through and employing a CEO, ensuring that that is the best CEO for the job, who I think we do have. And again, I go back to towns like Port Hedland and a couple of others who have been recently in the news. They are big roles. We have a $33 million budget. $33 million budget. If you're running a $33 million company, you'll be remunerated a lot more than what we are. And as a matter of interest, have a look at what some of the other state councillors are paid. And it's very political in the other states. In fact, in Queensland, a councillor, and it is, I know, with a lot more population of Toowoomba, will be paid $121,000 to be a councillor. And it's not a full-time role. It's defined as a role as the same as Western Australia. So I think that, unfortunately, I didn't really want to speak on this item tonight, but given Councillor Omaday's objection to the increase, and there are some policy settings that we are going to further discuss down the track, if some of us are still here. But I commend the motion to you, because we should value people's their contribution to their community and the decision-making process around their community.
Thank you, Councillor.
Madam President, can I make a personal explanation?
No. Yep, okay. Under duress.
Just by way of personal explanation, the parliamentary pension superannuation was brought in by Premier Burke. It was a 12% contribution by members of Parliament, which was matched by the state. When it comes to the comments made by, so that's just to correct Councillor De Campo in relation to the other comments made. The first 12 years that I was a councillor, we never got paid anything. And I had 4 kids under 5 and I was clearing land. And to make up for the time that I spent coming to council, I worked extra hours and extra days. So, you know, I think it's pretty hard to compare whether you're a working person or not. Obviously, if you're going to join council, you're going to have to make your time up in your business some other way. But I'm now talking to the motion. But I just thought I needed to clarify a few of those comments.
Thank you. Can we put it to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour of the officer's recommendation? And against? Carried 8-1.
Just confirm with Councillor Mylan if that was for or against.
Councillor Mylan, can I just confirm that was for? Yep, thank you. Where are we up to? Page 25. Councillor De Campo. 9.3.1, request to change basis of rating for portion of lot 101 in bracket 17 De Campo Road, Eastbrook, from gross rental value to unimproved value. Councillor Omaday.
And Madam President, I move as per the officer's recommendation.
And seconder? Councillor Venturous. Councillor Omaday, did you want to speak to the motion?
Just on clarification, obviously the De Campo family were running a business out of that location, therefore were spot rated on a gross rental value, and I think it's appropriate that it now be changed back to unimproved value.
Thank you. Councillor Venturous. Are there any other speakers? Can we put it to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Thank you. What are we? 8-0. Page 39. 9.3.5, proposed review of Council Policy 4.1.8, temporary overdraft, and Council Policy 4.1.1, investment policy. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to move as per officer's recommendation to start with.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Darren. Councillor De Campo, did you want to speak?
I just wanted to pull this item out. Given our previous conversation and responsibilities around local government, and because there may be a multitude of people watching us from who knows where in Australia, I just wanted to let people know that we don't have an overdraft. This is a policy in case we need to have an overdraft. In fact, Shire of Manjimup hasn't had an overdraft in 20 years, I think we said. Ever. And it's a policy that's driven from previous requirement to have rate notices out and then collect money in to be able to spend money in case there wasn't enough cash flow at a certain amount of time. So I just wanted to clarify to people who may have a misunderstanding of maybe we want an overdraft. It is purely a policy in case we do need one, and the Shire of Manjimup has never had an overdraft. So I commend the motion to you.
Thank you. Councillor Darren? Are there any other speakers? Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Page 42. 9.5.1, retrospective application for an animal establishment, dog breeding at Lot 1 in brackets 45 Tink Roads, Quinnanup. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. I have an alternative recommendation that I'd like to read out, and I hope you have cut lunch for the amount of time I'm going to be reading. It is that Council, in accordance with Part 10 of the Shire of Manjimup Local Planning Scheme Number 4, grants planning approval for the animal establishment breeding in brackets at Lot 1, 45 in brackets Tinks Road, Quinnanup, TP 2025/25 in brackets, as outlined in the plans and information attached at 9.5.1 in brackets, and subject to the following conditions. 1, the development hereby is approved is to be carried out generally in accordance with the plans and specifications submitted with the application, and these shall not be altered and or modified without prior knowledge and written consent of the Shire of Manjimup. Some references, 1, 2 and 3. Point 2, this development approval is granted for a 2-year period only after that expiration of which the period the use shall cease, unless prior to that date an application has been made to and approved by the Shire of Manjimup after payment of the appropriate fee for the continuation of the use for an extended period. 3, the maximum number of adult dogs housed at the premises being 6 in brackets, at any one time, 4 of which are permitted to be for breeding purposes. 4, the kennels are not to be used as a commercial boarding kennels at any time without prior planning approval. And 5, the activity shall be undertaken and managed in such a way that not to detrimentally impact the nearby homes on adjacent properties. I don't need to read the advice to the applicant, do I? I don't think so. The reason is for providing for a compliance review and a time-limited approval will allow the business owner to demonstrate that reduced numbers of dogs at the property might not cause an impact on amenity of the locality, and Shire staff will have a mechanism in place to ensure that complaints are handled, and that it should be demonstrated that the business demonstrated that the business is not complying with the EPA noise regulations, then the approval can be revoked or not renewed.
Sorry. Is there a seconder to the alternative recommendation? Councillor Wilcox.
Question, please.
Councillor Winfield.
The word generally in the development hereby approved is to be carried out generally in accordance with the plans. Is that normally the wording? Thanks.
Through the chair, yes, that is our standard wording for approval.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. Look, I went down and prior to our informal briefing last Tuesday, I went down and actually met with the owners of the dogs, not the owners of the property because they rent the property, to see firsthand exactly what the issue was in relation to the dogs' location, the noise and the amount of dogs. And I can only tell you what my experience was going to that property. I think I got them out of bed, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I answered the door without a gun pointing at me, which was handy when you're going to Quinnanup, I've got to say. Oh my gosh. Given the nature of the... look, the dogs didn't bark as I drove up the driveway. The cages are well kept. They've been moved up the hill. I believe, and I can't speak first hand with this, but I believe that the neighbours aren't being impacted as much as they were with the noise. I, in fact, asked for 2 dogs as breeding dogs, but you don't need an approval for 2 dogs. So we've given a 4-dog breeding approval. so that we can regulate the noise, which is a very wise thing to do. I think these people are actually just people trying to make a living, and I will quote a great quote from a great man just earlier, actually, and it's a quote that is interesting. In case in point, Councillor Murray Ventris, who I'm sure will have his valedictory speech with every item that he speaks for the next two meetings, and I may not get this quite right, so if you want to repeat it, I'd be very happy for you to, is that everyone loves a dog, but nobody wants to see a dog breeding facility. And that is true, isn't it? Everyone loves a dog, and it's probably the most housed pet in Australia, but nobody wants a dog breeding facility. They were well kept, well fed, well groomed, as most pets are actually. People will feed their pets before they feed themselves. One dog was in the house, which is their own dog. That barked more than all of the dogs in the kennels at once. We walked across to the kennels. I had a good look at them. The dogs barked at that point, but as we walked away, they stopped barking. So I firmly believe that they've dealt with the issue in relation to potential noise and barking. Barking dogs are always a problem at a certain time of the year in a certain atmospheric condition when it carries for they can, but the barking dogs
Thank you,
in
Councillor.
general, barking
Thank
dogs
you.
in general, if I just want to clarify, can be a problem, of course. You can hear them for kilometres with certain atmospheric conditions. But I'm sure that doesn't happen all the time. And in fact, with an easterly, the barking noise now will be carried away from the neighbours. So it lends itself, the positioning of the kennels lends itself much better to better noise management. So I commend the alternative to you. It's good to see a small business in the Shire of Manjimup around pets and people's choices for pets, which is, as I say, dogs are a companion for life, they say. So I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilcox. Don't know what else you could say. Are there any speakers against the alternative recommendation? Are there any other speakers? Right, can we put it to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? And against? Carried 8-1. Where are we up to? 91. Okay. 9.7.2, proposed review of Ranger and Emergency Services Policy. 5.3.2, Chief and Deputy Bushfire Control Officer Honorarium and Volunteer Training Officer Policy. 5.3.16, Resource to Risk Firefighting and Policy. 5.3.25, Fire Protection Shire Brigade Owned Firefighting Appliances. Doesn't get easier the more times you say it. Councillor De Campo.
Okay, my amendments, I think, have less words than that in it. So.
Hope so.
I'd like to propose an amended recommendation. So it's as per officer recommendation with an addition of further 3 points. Point 4, direct the Chief Executive Officer to increase the honorariums paid to the Chief Bushfire Control Officer and Deputy Chief Bushfire Control Officer by an additional $1,500 each for the 25-26 year onwards. Point 5, direct the Chief Executive Officer to review honorarium budget allocation item for the 25-26 Shire budget as a part of the annual budget review in January-February 26. And point 6, direct the Chief Executive Officer to annually review the honorarium paid to the Shire's volunteer bushfire brigade officers in the lead up to the adoption of each annual budget. The reasons are the Shire of Manjimup carries perhaps the greatest fire risk of all local governments in Western Australia. This is evidenced by the scale and impact of bushfires in recent years. O'Sullivan and Chesapeake come to mind. Regularly reviewing the honorarium ensures that the payment acknowledges the significant time, skill and risk of these volunteers that they undertake every fire season. It also acknowledges their vital service to the community and may help retain experienced officers by showing that their contributions are valued, and it also prevents the honorarium from becoming stagnant and losing its symbolic value over time due to inflation.
Thank you. I'm going to second that. Thank you very much. Councillor De Campo, did you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you. In fact, I've got to say, the President rang me a number of days ago and said that I'm not going to claim responsibility for this idea. It was the President's idea, but looking into it, there is a significant amount of responsibility being in these roles, and I didn't realise that during bushfire season they ring in and have a half-hour meeting every morning and various other things. And in fact, I wanted to pay a lot more. I would have said 12 and 14,000 a year would be what you should pay these people. And to their credit, they said, no, we're volunteers. We don't want much more than what everyone else is getting. But when you consider this, and consider this in context of the conversations we've just had previously, the Shire of Denmark is employing this position at a 0.6 at $90,000 a year, plus superannuation, I'm sure, plus a vehicle, I'm sure. And that is where this is going. And so we need to make sure that these roles that have significant responsibility attached to them, and during a fire, these guys don't sleep. If they were truck drivers, they'd be hauled away and fined for contravening heavy vehicle laws and fatigue management laws, but they don't sleep during a fire until the fire emergency's over. And so we should be giving them that recognition, which we do, but we should also be giving them some remuneration that is worthy of their contribution. And I think this small increase is a start. However, I think if we don't give some more remuneration to this, we may have to go down the path in the future, because you also need to have the next people coming through, like councillors, of who want to do the role. And when they see what the role is and how onerous it is from time to time, they might decide that, no, we don't have that time to do that because we've got jobs or whatever else. And I think it would be worse if you employed somebody, that the volunteer employed conflict that would arise from that would be far greater than if we just pay a little bit more to ensure that it always stays as a volunteer role. So I urge you to support the motion, and I commend the motion to you.
Question, Councillor Winfield?
My understanding is that the two incumbents are no longer seeking those positions. Is that true, Jason? That Ramo and Brad are not continuing?
Director of Development Services?
Through the chair, no, this is the first I've heard of it, no. I'm not too sure how to respond to that, sorry.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't let them leave anyway. Thank you, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councillor Winfield. I actually met, along with the Shire President, the Chief Bushfire Control Officer and Deputy Chief Bushfire Control Officer in the last fortnight or so. And they're very much, their advice to us is they're very much carrying on. So it might be scuttlebutt.
Okay, so I'd like to second this, the amended recommendation. Since coming into this role, it's been a very steep learning curve as far as bushfire have gone. We've had some quite significant bushfires within our area in the last 2 years. The dedication that these two men in particular show is outstanding. The hours that go into this that people just do not recognise. They sit around a table with a multitude of agencies that are all professional people, and they're all paid for their time. These two gentlemen make sure that every other fire brigade chief is everyone is okay, that everyone is getting home okay. They go to every AGM every year. These two gentlemen turn up to every AGM. The honorarium does not even touch the hours that these two do. I have absolutely nothing but respect for these two gentlemen. In saying that, we sit at a bushfire emergency advisory committee. There is a lot of wisdom around that table. There is not a lot of youth coming in to fill these positions. Now, this honorarium may not be an incentive for someone to stand, but very similar to councillor payments, this may not be a disincentive for someone to stand. I feel that most people do not know the hours and the work that the Deputy Chief Bushfire Controller and the Chief Bushfire Controller put in, and the responsibility that they have on their shoulders through fire season. So I absolutely implore that you do support this recommendation, and we give full respect to these two gentlemen and all of our volunteer bushfireys. Are there any speakers against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Ventris?
Yeah, I'd just like to make the point that historically there's been a very strong connection in this community where 80% of it's bush, a very strong connection in the community to the employment that the bush offers, in the sense that we've had timber workers and large numbers of timber workers that are directly affected by fire in the bush and the importance of the bush to their jobs. My concern is that we've had a change of policy, obviously directed by the state, where a lot of this bush is now being locked up, and there isn't, to the same degree, there is a connection, except with tourism and stuff, but there isn't the same direct connection possibly going forward between the local people and their employment and the bush. And so people, as we go forward, may not be inclined as willingly as they have in the past to protect that forest, because they knew that that forest had a very direct connection to their employment. So I think this is a good idea to encourage these people to do it, but at the end of the day, we may be masking a growing problem, a changing problem, a problem where there is a level of disconnect between the importance of the bush for the local people and the employment of the large percentage of the community, as we've got less truck drivers, less forest workers and the like. So sometimes when the decision was made to close the timber industry, these are the types of things that maybe we will find out as we move into the future, the consequences. Thank you.
Councillor, can I just ask a quick question? Just for a point of reference, Mr. CEO, can you tell me how much the honorarium is now?
Thank you, Madam President. And Mr. Giadresco, if I get the numbers incorrect, please correct me. But I was advised by our Community Emergency Services Manager a little bit earlier this week, the chief's honorarium is 4,000 and the deputy is 3,500. So that would go to, under this proposal, go to 5,500 and 5,000.
Excellent. Councillor Mylan, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I would like to speak in favour of this. Not so much because of the monetary incentive, because I don't know that would make a great deal of difference, but really just to make the point that the bushfire risk in our Shire is, to my way of thinking, possibly the greatest risk that we face. And we all know that the bushfire season, as it's called, seems to be getting longer, sometimes seems to start earlier. And I think I just wanted to take the opportunity to speak about this because I think that the work that all of our bushfire volunteers do, but obviously in this case, obviously the Chief and Deputy Chief Bushfire Control Officers, I know spend an inordinate amount of time and they do see themselves as volunteers. So I just I commend this this motion, not so much because of the monetary value of it, but as an acknowledgement that this is an ongoing, a big issue and potentially, growing. The season isn't short. It's not like the bushfires are in January and February. It drags right through to Easter and beyond, and they sort of spend time getting ready for the bushfire season, all these volunteer groups, and then they deal with the fires, and we must have more than most shires, I imagine, and then they have a short rest, and then they start training and gearing up again. So it's not just a short-term thing, and I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor De Campo, did you want to close?
Just quickly, are you sure you're not running, Councillor of Interest? Sure you're not putting your hand up again? Look, I commend the motion to you. All of the comments that have been made are exactly spot on. We have a Shire where we have 87% forested. Pretty soon they'll be telling us we're going to have the biggest bushfire season ever coming up because we've had above average rainfall every month and 108 billion tonnes of ice have been added to Antarctica this year alone. So these roles are very, very serious and they are required. And let's just not forget, this is not about bush. This is about writing out permits for farmers and other people who need to use that as a tool in their management practices of their properties, sometimes the road verges. So they have an onerous responsibility and role, and I think that this small amount of remuneration increase is really important to ensure that we, not one, we keep the people we have, and two, we have a pathway to the future of somebody who might want to do it in a voluntary basis.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. Thank you to our fireys. 98. 9.9.1, consideration of fee waiver request from Breast Screen WA. Councillor Ventress? As per officer's recommendation.
I'll get up and do it with the microphone if you like.
I'd like to move as per officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Ventress.
Yeah, I've moved as per officer's recommendation because I'm happy for it to be put, but I'll be speaking against it, Madam President. I'd just like to draw your attention to the officer's report, and I'll just read some of it here. Organisational risk management. Waiving fees and charges, which are already significantly subsidised, could I'll put my glasses on, potentially undermine the Shire's ability to generate revenue and sustain facilities over the long term. Whilst the dollar figures pertaining to this application are relatively small, there is a risk of establishing a precedent for other community health or organisations to request fee waivers in the future. Under financial implications, facility fees and charges are set at a modest level, and whilst revenue from the facility hire is small, it makes an important contribution to the Shire's overall budget and capacity to maintain facilities, deliver services and meet community needs. Waiving of venue fees and charges reduces revenue. Now, just to have a closer look, and you'll find that in the attachments on about page 400, we have a request for a waiver, which is basically a request to waiver the cost of the electricity. At the letterhead, on the top of that letterhead, the letterhead reads the Government of Western Australia. So ultimately this request comes from the Government of Western Australia. And what are they requesting? That we waiver the cost of electricity. Let's ask ourselves, who's responsible for health? Is it the local ratepayers? Are they responsible for health? Or is it the Government of Western Australia? And my reckoning is it's the Government of Western Australia that's responsible to pay for this electricity. Who sets the price of electricity? The Government of Western Australia. And we all know how much it's gone up. So I think it's an unreasonable request of the Government of Western Australia to ask ratepayers in this community to pay for the cost of electricity for what is a health service. And I know it's only small numbers and it might be $860, but if you look back 10 years, go forward 10 years by $860 is more like $8,500. And I think this is just another case where we run a two-tier system. The suggestion in the letter that other shires pay for this, I think is a little generous in the letter. I'd like to know, does the Shire of South Perth, does the Shire of Dalkeith, the Shire of Claremont, do the ratepayers in those districts pay for the electricity for breast screening? Maybe the Cook Labor government could look at closer to home and look at what they're actually asking us to waiver. Other community groups in this area, if they need financial assistance to pay for things like electricity and other like, we already commit 2.5% to community grants. They could have put an application in for a community grant. All other groups are expected to go to the trouble of put it in and acquit that grant. And so we already make a commitment to community events. If this organisation can't afford electricity, they could have gone through the due process and been considered along with a lot of other groups. They're not all groups were granted the full amount, just reminding. And so I think in a situation, this government that runs a multi-billion-dollar surplus and it's got plenty of money for things like V8 tracks and Metronet and bear fight events in Perth and soccer and rugby and the like, there's a little cheeky of them to come and ask a small organisation like us to pay for the electricity. And I think regardless of what other shires are doing, and this is just one of these small things where we need to push back a little bit and say, no Cook Labor government at the moment. It's the Cook Labor government. Yes, you've sent us a letter with the Government of Western Australia written on the top, but it's about time that you took responsibility for health and asked the question of them. Are the women in this community worth the investment? And I'd suggest when you look at the volunteering that we've spoken about, whether it be at fireys or ambulance, we've got ambulance officers, a good number of ambulance officers that are women in the 50 to 70 year age bracket, that volunteer and work for this government free of charge to offer a paramedic service as it is. They work free of charge, and then when they're finished doing their volunteer work, they find themselves having to raise money for the equipment and buy ambulances. So we already make a contribution to health, and I think it would be in the interest of this Cook Labor government to consider the health of some of these volunteers, these 50 to 70-year-old women. It's in their interest to look after their health because they're volunteering and working already in the health sector. The other thing that we could ask ourselves, do we invest? Does this council invest in health? Who's built the accommodation for the health workers in this community? The ratepayers. Does that happen in South Perth and Claremont and Dalkeith? The ratepayers building accommodation for the doctors and the health workers in their area? I think we've done enough. And I think if this government can't afford $860, $21, we've already explained that that's the subsidised rate for electricity that they've put up, and I'd just like to go counter. Maybe I'm swinging upstream in a downstream flow, but I think in this one I won't be supporting the officer's recommendation. And I do understand that it's got a certain amount of emotional connection and it's a difficult decision, and I can understand that possibly the staff were torn, like many of us, between seem to be doing the right thing and actually doing the right thing. So I think the easy decision is just, pay the money. But I think the more difficult decision and the right decision is to push back a little bit. And I'm not sure what the consequences of that might be. But for me, and I'm not even looking for the support of other councillors, but I'd just like to explain that I won't be supporting this. And I'd be looking to the government to start pulling their weight, not just in this area, but in areas of paramedic services, in the area of looking after a forest. We've discussed that. It's their forest. They own 80% of this community and pay no rates, and yet they make large demands of what should and shouldn't happen to that asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ventris. Councillor De Campo.
Well, this is going to be an interesting chat, isn't it? I will be very careful with what I say in relation to this item. There are 9 breast screen locations in Perth that anyone, because let's not forget that men can get breast cancer as well, that anyone can walk in off the street, I'm sure, and book an appointment. I'm sure you couldn't go in there to get a screening done straight away, but there are 9 locations in Perth that women generally can walk in off the street and get their breasts screened. There are no locations between Bunbury and Albany, and this service comes through here and it goes to Northcliffe, as far as I know, Walpole, Manjimup and Pemberton. And we're talking about $890 to ensure that breasts get screened. Now, wouldn't it be a travesty if they said, well, we're not going to come to your community because you are now going to charge us for the power? And I read to you and quote, and I'm sure it's not a lie because I wouldn't have said that anything with the insignia of the Western Australian North Metropolitan Health Service, well, I'm not completely sure about that, would be a lie in writing. And we would like to request you provide us with the waiver of the same. Being a not-for-profit government health unit, we have never had to pay any fees to the Shire of Manjimup in the past or to any other shires around Western Australia. We would be the first shire to charge for a service to ensure that women don't get breast cancer in this state. Wouldn't that be a travesty, I'm sure? Then the inequity, and you talk about inequity, and I understand you were talking about an inequity right across a lot of services. The inequity where this is purely because they plug into our power, by the way, and I'm not sure how we just couldn't consider that all of those solar panels that we've put on the roofs, that we get power for free, that we're giving it to them for free anyway. Maybe we just should count it as free power. However, when other people use our car parks, like Targa Rally did just recently in Pemberton for their gravel section of their rally, we don't charge them for the car park. This is a very dangerous path and a slippery slope to be going down. If we're going to start charging every group, every public group, every not-for-profit, remembering this is a not-for-profit funded by the government, and that's why it has the insignia of the Government of Western Australia at the top of the letterhead. It's a very slippery slope if we want to charge cost recovery on every group that comes through. And we've talked about just recently the increase in traffic management for community events like the Cherry Harmony Festival, where it's going to go from $6,000 to between $35,000 and $55,000 if we can't put a lasso around it and get it back to some common sense. Then you add the fact to that, the rhetoric around the health system in Western Australia right now in relation to services provided in Perth, some would say the lack of. I've got to say in my experience, and I was at Charlie Gardner's 2 weeks ago, and I'm going there again in 2 weeks' time for an MRI, the service is fantastic, and I think that people absolutely in that service provide on a day-to-day basis an amazing amount of personal goodwill to those within it. And so for us to potentially impact a service that comes to our community, and that is free as far as I'm aware. I'm sure somebody should use the van here. Is it free? It is free. So for our, how many women in, only because it's not my gender, how many women in the Shire of Manjimup?
It's in this report here somewhere. You want to go and find it?
Let's just say it's 4,000 or 5,000, free to 4,000 or 5,000 people. You do the numbers, it's a very low investment. And I'm not sure if you know anyone who has had breast cancer. We all do. That's the point. It is an insidious thing to get, and unless treated very early, obviously is fatal to those who catch it late. So I certainly will not stand here, and I certainly will not argue to be the first local government in Western Australia, in the regional and rural Western Australia, to charge the breast screen van for an appearance fee, essentially. I urge you to support the motion as it stands in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Well, we've already had against and for, so you know.
6 years on council, 8 years all up, this might be the very first time I'm going to say I agree with Councillor Ventris.
Oh.
I know, right?
Are you sure you're not running again, Councillor Ventris?
Look, yes, I do. Breast screening aside, and of course the importance of that, very much so. We are talking about a government organisation. This isn't, from what I can gather, an independent incorporated association that is funded by government through grants. It is a part of the state government. We are not talking about fees just simply for the sake of being somewhere. We are talking about recouping costs that we actually do incur. That should be a state government thing. Now, I'm not going to speak for the other towns, I'm only going to speak for Manjimup. We have a very nice, I believe you said a $39 million hospital that this bus could be located at and plugged into the power at that hospital and utilise the power paid for by the WA state government for our own hospital. They've chosen to go to another location that our ratepayers will need to pay for the cost of the electricity to do that. This is a bigger argument, and this is why I agree with Councillor Ventris. In the state election, we fought tooth and nail, my husband being one of them, fought tooth and nail with every single representative from that nominated the Liberal candidate, the Nationals candidate, and the Labor candidate for the need of a CT machine in Manjimup. We have advocated here and through our community groups consistently for more paramedic services. We continually hear about the need for better funding of healthcare, but when the media talks about this, they talk about it in the metro area. They are not talking about the investment in state health in country areas. And when we cost shift and move that cost into the regions, and every single one of those shires wears the $860 of every single site for the days that they come here, we don't identify the problem in the state budget because it doesn't exist. They don't see it. They don't see that there is a cost to these things, and if it's not their monkey, then it's not their circus. We are taking that from them so that they don't have to say there is an issue here that we need to fund the regions better, because we're doing it for them. We paid for the housing for doctors and nurses. We are the ones that are putting up the volunteers to go out and help people in a paramedic sense. We are the ones that are doing this at a community level and advocating at a local government level, and now we're talking about paying the costs for another state government service that is going to be here. So how do we then stand up to our politicians at a state and a federal level and say, you are not investing enough into our communities? Our hospitals are full, in part because the federal government is not funding aged care properly, which then puts those people into our hospitals. Those people are coming down from Bunbury because Bunbury can't handle them, and they're being put into small hospitals like here, and then we are at capacity. And then we go to our politicians and say there is a problem, and they say, well, where's the evidence? And it's not there because we keep paying for it and stepping up and filling the gaps ourselves. This is a very small part of that. It is not going to change the world, I understand that. But it is a little bit of a pushback to say we are not going to continue picking up your monkey so that it becomes our circus. We are going to say you need to deal with your issues, you need to fund regional and rural health care better, and that the negative and the health outcomes, which are worse in country areas, every single report that comes out of the federal and state government, not-for-profits, every single one says if you live in the country, you are more likely to be disabled, you are more likely to die from your health issues, you are more likely to suffer because of your health issues and die prematurely. Every single report says that. Now, I recognise that we live in a rural community and some of those things we do have to accept, but what I won't accept is us continuing to allow government after government to not invest properly in rural health and watching the media continually talk about healthcare being a metro issue. Again, this is not a reflection on Breast Screen WA. Absolutely, this is a vital service. They do an amazing job. I don't think that they are not going to rock up because they have to pay for their electricity. Again, this is not about us making revenue. It is about us recouping the costs that it is imposed on our ratepayers to ensure that these services, and it's not our remit. So I'm going to be voting against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Omodo.
The question is, I suppose that Breast Screen could have plugged into the power at the Pemberton Hospital rather than at the sports club, but the obvious thing is that the sports club's got a big parking area that was very visual for anybody that comes into town to be able to see. Look, I'll be supporting the motion because I believe that we need to look after women's health and breast cancer. But I do take on board the comment. I think the next step, maybe, Madam President, is up to you to maybe write to the government and say to them, look, this is what's happening. And it might seem trivial, it's only $850, but it's part and parcel of a bigger picture where regional WA is not really being considered appropriately, I think. I support all the other comments that have been made, but yeah, I think in the end we need to support the motion.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions.
Question?
Okay. Yes, I've already had my word and I've just forgotten that I didn't move the motion. I have a question.
You did move the motion.
That's why I have a question.
No, he seconded it.
Yeah, he doesn't have a right.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I didn't.
But
move
he's
the
asking
motion.
a question.
Is there a 9% increase in urban diagnosis of breast cancer versus rural Western Australia?
I'm assuming at this point you want me to say yes.
I can tell you the
Okay.
answer is yes. Are there outcomes in regional rural Western Australia due to the delay of diagnosis worse than metropolitan Perth?
Yes.
Was this motion about $890 of power, or was it about ambulatory services or about general healthcare services in Western Australia?
Thank you. Point taken. Are there any other speakers? Okay, I would just like to, before I get you to close, Councillor Ventris, I would like to speak to this. I've taken onto account what Councillor Ventris has said, and I fully understand this. I do think it's cost shifting. My mum was diagnosed with breast cancer at this breast screening ban. She went through her chemo and she went through her treatment. Without this free service within our area, it's highly likely that it wouldn't have been picked up until it was well and truly too late. So I completely concur. We do, and thank you, Councillor Omade, for stealing my thunder. Part of my comment was to be, I think we do need to write about this, and we do need to say this is cost shifting, but this is an essential service for our area. So I will be supporting the officer's recommendation, but we'll be doing some further follow-up work after this motion is put forward. Councillor Ventris, would you like question?
If the $800 odd is strictly for electricity used, or does it also include parking fees?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. It is just for electricity. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ventris, did you want to close?
I just would clarify, I think you'll find it's for electricity, but it is also, by the way, for the use of the toilets and the adjacent facility as well, which we cover the cost of the water, the toilets and the cleaning, and for officers to open that up. But that's by the way. Look, in summing up, I fully understand and appreciate the comments of the President just there. I understand whichever way anyone votes tonight, we all support breast screening. There's a complete misunderstanding if you think that I'm here standing up speaking against breast screening. So, you know, that would be a mistake. And yes, I have encompassed, and as the comment been made by Council, yes, I have encompassed more than breast screening, because I think sometimes you need to look deeper into these issues. And yes, it does cover health in general. And this is just, you know, this brings home the point, whether it's kidney dialysis, CT scans, paramedic services, mental health services. Congratulations on having a good service as outlined Councillor De Campo in the metropolitan area, but the points made by Councillor Darren, we do live in part in Western Australia. I think we're entitled to more, and this letter somehow highlights the fact that there's an expectation that in the country we're to be self-sufficient when other councils, clearly there's large numbers of city councils that do not pay for any of these types of things when it comes to the area of health. So I think that we impose enough on the ratepayers, given that some have just, you know, had increases to their rates and stuff, to expect them to pay for bills like this when the state government of Western Australia quite obviously has billion-dollar surpluses. So I think all those points I've made, but I do appreciate that this is a difficult one, and people, it's to some degree a conscious vote, but I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Ventris. Councillors, can we put that to the vote, please? All those in favour? And 6, and Councillor Mylan, and against 3. Carried 6-3. Thank you, councillors. 102, 992, divestment Shire of Manjimup aged and community care services and assets. Proposal to seek expressions of interest. Councillor Darren.
I would like to move an amended motion. So as per the officer's recommendation, but with the addition of a 2.4 that states monitor and seek community engagement through the establishment of a community advisory board or the like to ensure community needs are monitored and understood.
Thank you, Councillor. Just second, Councillor De Campo. Councillor Darren, did you want to speak to the amended motion, please?
Firstly, I would like to just speak to the general motion. I think this is an important process for us to go through. This has been quite a considered and drawn out review, and congratulations, thank you to the staff that have been involved. This has been very comprehensive. We have received a lot of information and we've taken a lot of time to review our options in this space. The reality is aged care is becoming increasingly complex. It is something that local governments have been involved in previously for need, but in moving forward and with the complexities that are coming, the reality is that there's just simply not the depth and breadth of experience to take on the challenges of what comes next and the increasing demand that's going to come from an ageing population. And this gives us an opportunity to feel out what is happening in the market and see whether or not we can come together with a more coordinated approach to aged care across all of the different services that are available. In terms of my amendment, my reason for adding this is because I do feel that if we are going to look at a divestment of aged care and community care services, that we need to ensure that there is still a conduit between the community and consumers through to the management of any organisation that takes this on. We have something very similar. It's called DHAC, District Health Advisory Committee, which is a consumer group that has direct access to the management and executive of the WA Country Health Service. And is able to feed back information that is coming from the community and experiences from the community, suggestions from the community, back into that process to ensure that the needs of the community are being heard, because we know that local solutions for local problems is really what works. And although we would be providing this service or extending this service out to a provider, we do want to make sure that our community is still represented and heard, and made sure that if there are issues, that they are dealt with quickly and through the correct channels, without having to have individual people sitting around trying to get in contact with someone to let them know what their issues are. This would allow them to have a way in through their community members directly into that management team. So this amendment is really just about encouraging anybody that puts in an EOI to this proposal does so with the knowledge that the Shire of Manjimup is going to expect a level of community engagement, not only at the time but ongoing throughout the term of their investment with aged and community services in Manjimup.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor De Campo.
Yes, thanks, Madam President. I support Councillor Darren's addition of 2.4, and even if she hadn't have moved to put that 2.4 in, I was always going to speak on this motion because this is one of those things where we need action despite fear. And in the words of John F. Kennedy, every accomplishment starts with a decision to try. The area of aged care is becoming very complicated, regulated, and some would say over-legislated. We as an organisation took on home and community care a number of years ago now, when there was the possibility of it folding in our community completely. And it has been a highly successful model. And the reason I wanted to talk tonight was to assure those who are involved, who are both recipients and participants in the delivery of these services, is that we are acting in the best interests of you. And the model going forward is going to get tougher and tougher for local governments to maintain and manage And I think, in fact, there are only 3 of these such models in Western Australia left, where local governments managed service delivery of this type. So it is a tougher industry to be in. But again, I just wanted to talk about the people and be rest assured that we have the best interests of a better service delivery in relation to both home and community care and aged accommodation going forward long term. The investment that we would have to do would far outweigh the return that we currently get. And it's not about money, it's about people. So if we can see a better service delivered for the people that are not just getting that service now, but you know, some of those around the room who may need it soon as well. Sorry, Liv. then we'll make sure we do that. And adding points like 2.4, where we want to monitor and seek community engagement, is very, very important. But again, I would just want to reiterate to those people who are now getting a service, who are delivering a service, this is not about abandoning you. It's about actually giving you a better opportunity to have a better service in the future. And for those who 3 of my grandparents in the last 2 years have needed a bed in the final chapters of their life when they're looking at the light, we want to see a better outcome for that as well, because they are very tough days to get through. And our facility now, as we know, is old and poorly maintained, some would say, although I would say that my experience there is that my grandparents had the best experience that they could possibly want and wish for there because of the staff again. So we are just doing the best by our community to ensuring that the long-term sustainability of aged care and service delivery in that area is maintained through the private sector, potentially if this item passes.
Councillor Mylan.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to speak in favour of the officer's recommendation and the amendment, because I think what it does is it ensures scrutiny over what any potential applicants who might express an interest in taking over these services might propose for our Shire. And I want to say that it's not a foregone conclusion that this will happen. It's not a decision that will be made until such time as we see what comes in as a result of an expression of interest. And I will be paying close attention personally to ensuring myself that the services that may be provided by any future service providers, and I understand that it's got much more complex, and it's going to be difficult for the Shire to continue to be involved. However, my priority will be to ensure that any service is at least as good as what we've got now, because just from another personal experience and I want to go to the home and community care of a friend of mine who has recently required this service, and it took some time to not to engage the service to reach the point where we realised this might be needed. And the service from the Manjimup Home and Care aged providers has been absolutely fabulous and made a huge difference to this person and to the person's family who have had to provide a lot of care. So I suppose what I'm really saying is it's a step that we need to take. The whole regime of aged care, disability service, NDIS is going into a new stage, as we know, hopefully by November. It will be more complex. There'll be more accountabilities and so forth. We need to do it, but we need to also have strong oversight into any future direction that we might take, because quite honestly, the service, as has been attested to by some of the speakers already, that we are receiving it's been really outstanding. So it has to at least match that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Darren, did you want to close? Can we put it to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 9-0. Thank you. 114, 913.1, proposed one-off delegation to the Chief Executive Officer to award requests for tender 01-26 supply of gravel and 02-26 cartage of gravel. Councillor Darren.
I'll move as per officer's recommendation.
And seconded by Councillor Ventris. Councillor Darren, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Ventris? Can we put it to the vote then, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 9-0, thank you. What am I doing, Murray? 118, 9.14.1, replacement of Manjimup bin surrounds. Councillor Darren?
I'll let him move things, he keeps talking. I'll move as per officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Ivey. Councillor Darren, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Ivey, did you want to speak to the motion? Are there any other speakers? Councillor De Campo?
No.
Are there any other speakers? Can we put it to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? 9-0, thank you. 125, yep. 9.16.2, unconfirmed minutes of the Manjimup Heritage Park Advisory Committee meeting held on the 8th of July. Councillor Ivey.
I move as per the officer's recommendation.
Seconder. Councillor Winfield. Councillor Ivey, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Winfield, are there any other speakers? Can we put it to the vote, please? All those in favour? 9-0, thank you. Okay, page 136, item 10, late reports. There are nil. 11, questions from members. 11.1, response to questions from members taken on notice. There are nil. 11.2, questions from members. Nil. Section 12, motions for consideration at the following meeting. This notice put forward by Councillor De Campo has been supported by Councillor Ventris and Councillor Wilcox and will come to the September meeting for consideration of council. Thank you.
Madam President, I have 3 further notice of motions for the next meeting.
Fabulous.
And I apologise in advance to staff, although these are long time frame notices of motion. It might be my last opportunity at that meeting to get some of these things done, although I hope by not. I publicly declare over the cloud or whatever it is that I will be running, nominating for council. And I'm... Well, I probably gained 2 and lost 4, so I don't know. That's net. Okay. And I might lose a few out of this too, to be honest, but doing the right thing takes a little bit of courage. And I'm happy to work with the wording if it's not... So the first one is that Council directs the CEO to engage a suitable consultant in the field of office architecture to provide Council with a refurbishment plan for the main office, including the outer courtyard and the integration of the rear of the Town Hall using the Building Infrastructure Reserve. And the point 2 to that would be provide Council with a report with cost estimates for the inclusion in the 26-27 budget deliberations. The second one would be that the CEO direct the Director of Community Services to prepare a submission to relevant funding providers, and that leaves the door open to whatever funding providers, for the Pemberton Playground refurbishment, using the Playground Reserve as seed capital for the application, or alternatively the Building Infrastructure Reserve if the seed capital in the Playground Reserve isn't enough. Point 2, the submission to the relevant funding body be submitted in a manner that, if successful, allows the playground to be built in the 26-27 calendar year, so quite a long lead time there as well. And the third one is that that the CEO direct the Director of Finance to introduce a 70% cap on the minimum rate for the Donnelly Hut precinct in the Manjimup Shire to be included in the 26-27 budget. And point 2 for that is that council rebate the hut owners in the Manjimup Shire Council side of the Donnelly Hut precinct the 30% of rates, if this motion is successful, that have been paid in the 25-26 budget this year. That one might need some manipulation.
Thank you, Councillor. 13, new business of an urgent nature introduced by a decision of the meeting. There was nil applications for leave of absence. I think we've already approved Councillor Darren's. I think that was it. Lovely. There being no further business to discuss, I wish to thank you, those in attendance and those online, and close the meeting at 7:20. Thank you, Councillor Mylan, for joining us online. Good luck tomorrow.